Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast with me, your host, Freddie Hall. Welcome back for another preseason preview as well, joined by Adam Martin, Andrew Mannion, here to look at the NFC East today. Thank you so much for all the love we've been getting on social media and on our YouTube channel. And if you've been listening on podcasts platforms, even better as well. Make sure you check out all the episodes that we've done so far. On them platforms, we have done the North and the West. So if any of your teams fall into either of them categories, make sure you go and check it out today. And once again, thank you for following on social media. I hope you've been enjoying the clips. They've been really good fun to do. Some controversial takes in there, but put some more comments in there. Push back us. Say something horrible, not too horrible, because I'm not as thick-skinned as Adam, who's been on a lot of clips recently. I'm a bit more thin-skinned and I can be easily upset. So, just don't attack me. Maybe attack the comment, but be kind, but also harsh and honest. All at the same time.
Yeah.
NFC East, we will kick off today with looking at America's team, the biggest team in America, the biggest team in the NFL. The epitome of why we watch the NFL, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. 7-9-1 last season, finishing second in the NFC East. Did miss out on the postseason because of that pesky draw, really. Not much in terms of coaching changes, all sticking at the top of the tree, them guys. However, they have reinforced this offseason on the defensive side, notably today. Veteran edge rusher Von Miller signing a 1-year deal, I believe. Don't have the details of the actual contract, but a team that, defensively last year it was in just disarray, Adam. They were just so bad. Bottom third of everything, 32nd in points, 30th in total yards, 32nd in total yards passing, 35 touchdowns allowed. Dismal. They went and did a lot of moves in the season last season, specifically acquiring some players via trade, notably defensive tackle Quinnen Williams from the New York Jets. Went out and did a lot of moves to try and reinforce it. Have they done enough to turn their defensive fortunes around this season?
I think they've certainly brought in the players to do it. I think it would be harsh to come out and say that they haven't. So I think that they've got a really good chance of doing that. I think, there was a lot of concerns with the Micah Parsons trade and when they did that, but that brought them Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark is there as well. Both come from Green Bay. As you say, Von Miller has come in today, which is probably, it's going to be a 1-year deal and see how he'll probably move on after it, but you never know. And I think that they've done quite well. They brought in Kobe Durant from the Rams, who did pretty well. He was all right for the Rams. I think it was their weakest spot. We always felt it was the corner thing for the Rams, but he's not too bad. And then in the draft, obviously they've brought in some acquisitions for the defense. None more so than bringing in Caleb Downs, which should really make a huge difference to that team. And kind of, I would assume that he would almost become the leader of the sort of secondary of that defense now and really make a difference. So, yeah, I think that they've done very well. Obviously, the fact that they are all new starters, they are all going to have to gel together, and that's something that might take a couple of weeks at the beginning of the season to really get going. But I think you're definitely going to see a different Cowboys team compared to last year, because I think that they have brought in the veterans and they have invested heavily in that defense, and that should really make a difference for them.
We talk about their defensive play, Andrew, and the improvements it's made there, but the one thing they don't overly need to improve in a way is their offense. It was high scoring, high flying, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. Javonte Williams had his question marks when he came over from Denver. And really, they were fantastic. And a lot of that is attested to Dak staying upright. people have his doubts about him. People have their doubts about him being a top 10 quarterback. I think he's a tangibles guy in terms of his leadership, what he brings to that dressing room, his experience. I mean, he was an experienced head when he had no experience in the NFL, and now he has got that. He has jumped some hurdles. He has had some down times and some hard times, and now he's fully fired last season, again, with some amazing offensive weapons. With this step now of adding this defense and gelling them together and potentially, hopefully, some momentum they maybe get on the offense this season coming up, is it playoffs or bust a little bit for this coaching team as well?
No, I don't think you can go as far to say playoffs or bust for them. I think they're still very much in a transition period of rebuilding after losing their star on the defense. Yeah, it's a high-powered offense. Yeah, there's maybe not a rebuild, a long rebuild in some of the players' names, if in the likes of Dak and CD and Javonta. Like that's not a long rebuild, is it? I think that's a short rebuild, and the steps that they took last year showed that they were on their way to that. So I think if they just have another progressive season, they beat the record from last year. The offense is still as high-powered as what it was last year. If that defense improves just 10% on what it was last year, then I think it's tick, tick, tick for them. And then they'll be happy that they're moving in the right direction. Obviously, Jerry will want playoffs, but they've got to be realistic with this. We were talking on previous shows that how many wins you might need to get into the playoffs. So it's going to be tough. You could have 10 wins and miss out, but I think if this team gets to 10 wins, I think that's massive improvement and progress moving forward when we've seen other teams move backwards. So I don't think it's playoffs or bust for them. And I think they're in for a good year. Like I say, I think high-powered offense, and I think they made the right move in moving off of Parsons because they've rebuilt that defense with all those picks in quite a short period of time. And I think that defense is definitely improved on what it was. So there's no reason why they can't go one better, two better than what they did last year.
Apologies, I've just realised I've got my window open, so I'm sorry if you hear the streets of London echoing and calling out. It's an active area around where I live. They have got a win already this season, though, beating the Seattle Seahawks, Super Bowl champions, in the first preseason game, 17-7. A commentary, Andrew, on this draft class, though. Caleb Downs, for anyone who hasn't watched or listened before, Andrew is a New York Giants fan, so he hates the Dallas Cowboys. So actually what he was saying then is it took all of him to be that complimentary of what the Dallas Cowboys are doing moving forward. And one thing that did stab you in the side during this offseason was the drafting of Caleb Downs to the Dallas Cowboys, the safety out of Ohio State, who many revere as being just the best out-and-out player coming out of the 2026 draft. And the theme of defense runs through this draft as well. Malachi Lawrence out of UCF, the edge rusher, Jayshon Barham, the linebacker out of Michigan, the cornerback Devin Moore in the 4th from Florida, LT Overton, defensive lineman out of Alabama. A couple of offensive picks in there as well. But 2 first-round picks, how well do you think they did with them two?
Yeah, it's excellent, isn't it? To get Caleb Downs out of that was a win for anyone. That's the one. Obviously, being an Ohio State fan as well and following that so vigorously season in, season out. When they brought him over from Alabama, they built their whole defense around Caleb Downs. The Ohio State defense was the number 1 defense for 2 years running, and they built it solely around Caleb Downs. So all those other pieces, all those big names that you see, your Arvell Reeses, your Sonny Styles, various other ones that went in the previous year, they were all built around this guy, which surely tells you the type of player he is. Adam, I think, mentioned that he was going to be the leader of that backfield. I think he's going to be the leader of that defense. I think we talked about this when we were talking about ranking the draft people. That position that he plays for me is almost like the quarterback of the defense. He'll read it, he'll call plays, he'll change what the defense is going to do. He can see the whole field. He can play down, he can play back. He's got everything in the locker. So I think that's real key for them. They've got another guy on that defense they can build around. They can forget about Parsons and put all in all into this guy and really look for the future. And to get some lovely pieces, we really liked Malachi Lawrence as well. I think that's a great piece to pick up. And I was really high on LT Overton. I felt he was undervalued at where he went. So some really, really good picks there. But yeah, that Caleb Downs pick is the key to their success, I think.
I'm also in the side of, I'm pretty sure it was Dallas that traded with Philadelphia for Makai Lemon, right? And Makai Lemon got taken by the Philadelphia Eagles when he was just nearly sitting there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I equally am not a huge fan of the Dallas Cowboys on this show today. They moved back then, Adam, and then got Malachi Lawrence, a player that I admittedly didn't know all that much about coming out of UCF. Andrew seems to be high on him. What's your take of that? Because we all know Caleb. We won't hop on too much about Caleb Downs because I think it's a mass consensus that he's going to be an incredible player in the NFL.
Yeah, I think Lawrence was a good sort of linebacker, edge rusher type guy, wasn't he? He was that sort of hybrid kind of weapon that you see a lot more now in the NFL. So he wasn't. I don't think that we had him particularly high in the edge rushers show that we did, but I think that he was one that sort of like cropped up, and I felt like the first round was a little bit rich for him personally. I think I'm pretty sure we both said that we felt like he was a second round guy, but because so many of them went so quickly and they obviously wanted one, it kind of made sense that they went for him. Did really well at Central Florida, and yeah, I think they've got themselves a decent. They've got a few, haven't they? They've got Donovan Ezeraki there as well. It's kind of that there's a few of these young guys now that you sort of feel like are going to have a really good chance to sort of like learn off of someone like Von Miller now. So that's that's going to be great for them, and I think that you'll see that they'll do pretty well. But yeah, Lawrence, I kind of bit of a reach for me, but I think I can understand why they did it at the time, and it was very much about the defense, because the offense just didn't really need much doing to it.
I think there could be an argument that with that draft class and then the signings they've subsequently made, the trades they've made as well, that some people could look at that and go, I think you've almost overdone it in a way. But when you look on the other side of this division with someone like the Philadelphia Eagles, who constantly draft, constantly sign defensive players, defensive line, and they seem to all get on the field and they seem to all make an impact and they all seem to play really, really well. So barring any injury for the Cowboys, I think this reinforcement, and like you said, this teaching that can happen with the likes of Rashawn Gary and Von Miller teaching Ezeraku, Lawrence, like these guys are all going to get time. It is going to be a rotation. And if they get some of this cohesion, boy, I mean, this Cowboys could be actually very slept on going into this season. And it could be that we're looking back in January. In January, we look back, and we go, wow, how were people not talking about the Dallas Cowboys? They've got an absolute firestorm of an offense, and now they've added guys they've built it in culture, they're built in experience, but they've also got that youth as well. And it can build and build and build, and we could really see something magic coming from the Dallas Cowboys, who are such a historic franchise and a team that their glory days are a little behind them in a way because they're not exactly have recent success, but maybe this is the precipice of something good going forward with them. We won't skip any longer, Andrew. We'll get to them quick. The New York Giants. We'll get straight into them. 4-13, fourth place last season, missing out on the postseason. Yet to get a win under your belt in this preseason. Lost 13-10 against the Minnesota Vikings the other night. A turgid season, but one that gave some hope. Definitely sparked some interest. One drum that you've continuously beat is that this defense is going to come good. There's some good pieces. There's some good players. We've got some guys on there. And then we had the introduction of Jackson Dart last season, of Cam Scatterboo last season. And people going, wow, whoa, Dart, Scatterboo, this could be this could be the combo that we have going. We all said, yeah, well, the wide receiver room will build and build. And again, Malik Neighbours not staying fit the whole season. And there is something coming here. And then you have this offseason. There's been some movement. Brian Daboll out the door. John Harbaugh comes in. Let's talk firstly on the coaching movement, because that's the biggest thing. This Hall of Fame coach John Harbaugh from Baltimore Ravens coming in, installing his mindset, his philosophy, and a guy that I know you have like the utmost respect for.
Yeah, I think it's what we needed. I think last year, although we were a lot more exciting than we've ever been on the field, it did feel a little bit like a boys' club. You know, Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterboot, and Daboll. You saw them on the sidelines. It was very much, young lads, college sort of frat house play. And I feel like John Harbaugh coming in sort of just brings in a leadership, an authority, a culture, and will just make the team more mature, which is what it needed to go from last year, because last year we got what we wanted, exciting football. You know, we were double-digit leads going into fourth quarters, which is something we didn't have the previous couple of years. So, exciting football last year, and then it just needs to be harnessed. And John Harbaugh is the perfect person to harness that. And like I said, culture. He's got a new team in there, and he's going to, we talk about that defense and we talk about it making the next step and having superstars. He's the one that's going to unlock that. And it's going to be finally come to fruition of these players that we've drafted.
One notable omission of his team this season is going to be Dexter Lawrence, who got traded to the Cincinnati Bengals. However, free agency, Calvin Austin brought in, a lot of familiar faces, Adam, from Baltimore. Isaiah Likely, the tight end, Daniel Falele, the guard, Patrick Ricard, the fullback, and many others, and a returning Odell Beckham Jr. as well to the New York Giants. I actually saw OBJ play for the New York Giants last time he played for the Giants against the Eagles in Philadelphia. So that's how long ago that was. That was 20. Ooh. Well, that was about 10 years ago. So 2016. So it's been a long journey for Odell Beckham Jr., but he's back in New Jersey. Like I said, Adam, lots of movement for the positive.
I don't mind the Dexter Lawrence trade. I think that they've replaced reasonably well. I think that DJ Reader will do a decent job for them. Shelby Harris is also on the defensive line. So I think they've got a couple of guys in there, which is all right. I like Tremaine Edmonds. I like Greg Newsome. I think he did well at Jacksonville last year. So I think they have brought in a couple of guys there that are going to be able to help an already strong defense. So a lot of people are going, oh yeah, but they've lost their best piece on the defense with Dexter Lawrence. I don't think it's necessarily going to affect them too much. So I think defensively, I really like them. A lot of the Baltimore guys that have come over, Isaiah Likely, I think is a good piece for them to have at tight end. I think that makes sense. The rest of them, I'm not really that fussed. I don't think there's much there. I think that most of them probably won't see a great deal of snaps. I think the O-line is, Falele's not too bad, so I think that he'll be all right. But I don't think he plays or starts anyway. I think the O-line should be reasonably good. They've got some depth at O-line by bringing in people like Falele, and Lucas Patrick's come in as well. So I think they're all right for that. But the thing that just makes me laugh with the Giants is the wide receiver room. It's just so funny. There's so many names there. It's unbelievable how all these guys are going to get any time.
I think it's going to be cut down, isn't it? Massively.
Yeah, I'd hope so. It is unreal how many wide receivers this team has got, because Malik Neighbours, fine, great. And then the rest of them, it is just a long list of guys that have been around the NFL for so many years and just are not really anything particularly special. I know a lot of Giants fans like Darius Slayton, and that's fine. As a wide receiver too, he's not a problem. Calvin Austin's a bit of a speedster, but then you've got Braxton Berrios, Darnell Mooney, Odell Beckham's come back, Juju's there now. Jalen Hyatt is still there for some reason that no one knows about. Isaiah Hodgins, do you need Isaiah Hodgins? Really? It's unbelievable, and that's not all of them. There's others as well. Xavier Gibson, didn't he play for the Vikings at some point? There's hundreds.
He definitely played for the Jets.
Yeah,
he's more of a punt returner than.
And the general feeling for me, because I think everything else I haven't got a problem with, but the general feeling for me with the wide receiver room is that they've got one really, really good wide receiver who's coming off a serious injury, and we don't 100% know when he's going to be back. And then the rest is just not a lot of interest in any of them. And I suppose it doesn't matter so much.
Looked good in the. I know it's preseason, but he looked good in the preseason game.
You were not overly keen on Malachi Fields.
Let me just interject with and sticking with you, Adam, for a second, and then allowing Andrew to rebuttal on this, because there is a point to be made here with. When you look at the draft class and, two high picks, the 5th and the 10th pick, they go for Arval Reese, they go for Francis Marinelli, the offensive lineman out of Miami. Second round, Colton Hood, the cornerback. Yes, Malachi Fields, wide receiver in the 3rd. Only wide receiver taken in this draft. There was names on the board in that 5th pick, in that 10th pick. Do you think it was a mistake to not go in that direction in the end?
No, not really, because I like the players that they got, and I think that the players that they got were the right things to do. I said all the way through the draft process that I felt like the O-line was something that they needed to bring in an O-line guy, and the fact that Marinoa was there, for us was the number one O-line guy, made an awful lot of sense to bring him in. Arval Reese, the fact that he dropped to 5 again made sense. I think they kind of went best player available to a certain extent at their picks, and so it makes a lot of sense. It's not so much that they should have drafted a young wide receiver. I just think it is difficult because sometimes it's money, sometimes you just can't get it done. I just feel like the Michael Pittman was available. Do you know what I mean? Just someone like that who's gone to the Steelers, who would be a really, really good wide receiver too, next to Malik Neighbors. And it just kind of feels a little bit like that's the kind of person, not necessarily a long-term play, but just someone who I think we could all come out and go, he's a really good wide receiver too. And that would make a big difference to that team.
The first name that comes to my mind, which again is not a long-term thing, but would have been great, is Mike Evans was out there as well. Like I know, Andrew, I'll allow you to rebuttal on both points. So,
well, I think we're looking at it in the wrong way here. The Giants weren't going into this draft thinking, do you know what, we've got a shot at the Super Bowl in 2027, 2026, 2027. So let's get another superstar wide receiver. This just wasn't what they were looking for. They're looking to rebuild, make sure they've got solid people. We've got a superstar wide receiver 1. Yes, he got injured, but when he's fit, he's a superstar wide receiver 1. We didn't need one of them. So the fact they patched it up with a Darnell Mooney, who I think is underrated, that we brought in. Slayton's going to be there. And we did bring in Malachi Fields, who the organization obviously liked. Fair enough, me and Adam weren't as high on him in the draft process, but we brought someone in. And then we brought Isaiah Likely in, who's going to be used massively as a wide receiver. I think when you think about how Harbaugh plays as well, it's a lot of run game. When's the last time Baltimore had more than one good wide receiver? Never. Zay Flowers has been their wide receiver 1 for how many years, and he's a slot guy. So it doesn't kind of fit into that play. So I think that we've got a wide receiver 1, and we know next year there's lots of fantastic wide receivers in the draft. So why not wait till next year? Get that O-line, get that defense, get that that cornerback that we desperately needed. And we'll worry about wide receiver 2 next year when we're in a position, maybe if we qualify for the playoffs this year, we might be thinking, hang on, we can go further in the playoffs next year. Let's pick up a superstar wide receiver 2.
See, I kind of I get it, and I understand the logic, and that does make sense. But the fact that you're coming out and saying that we might make the playoffs this year, I think any team who makes the playoffs should be going for it a little bit.
Well, if they're, I think Michael Pittman, we didn't have a lot of money to spend on free agents.
No, and that's what when I said about the, it might have come down to that, and not.
I think that if we're in a position come the end of the season where we are in a position to qualify for this, maybe they bring someone in on free agency. Then maybe they go, hang on, we are there. Yeah. The team is good enough. The defense is playing well enough to win a championship. Let's trade for someone off of a team that's not in it. That could be the situation. I don't think we needed to go out and splash until we actually know what we're dealing with here, because we're putting a lot of eggs in the basket of Jackson Dart, and there's a lot of hype around him this season, but it is going to be a full proper season for him where we actually see what he can do, and I think the organization needs to give it that time. So there's time down the line to maybe bring someone in if we are in the position where we can go this year.
I think that's the big factor, isn't it? Like, this is the start of the Harbaugh, hopefully a long Harbaugh in New York. Like, they've not, though they've brought him in to be successful, they are not blind to the fact that he needs to build his team. And the moves he's made in terms of defensive line and the draft and stuff like that are very Harbaugh moves. And like I said, they're building from the ground up in a way. He knows he's got some really good pieces at the bottom of that base. He knows that. He knows he's got the base of the cake. He's got the cake in a good way. It's then making that cake, delicious with icing and all the other, bits and bobs on it, but will then progress it even further. And so you're right. You've got time. And I don't think there's not a outcry from the Giants fan base at the minute being like, what are we doing? I think that everyone's very brought in and believing in the process, aren't they?
I wouldn't be surprised if we tried to bring in another running back before we brought in another wide receiver. Adam says it's the wide receivers he's worried about. It's the running backs I'm worried about slightly. Cam Tabby's fitness, question mark. Tyrone Tracy, we saw his blocking in the preseason, which was non-existent, which nearly led to Jackson Dart dying. So I wouldn't be opposed to going after someone like James Conner before the season starts. I think that for me would really improve our game plan. I could see Harbaugh going down that line before he touches the wide receivers.
Before we move on to the next team, just a little word from the sponsor who has brought today's show to you, and that is Pitch Magazine. In the next edition of Pitch, it's all about the Super Bowl, a Texan thread running throughout. We have an extended look at how and why the Dallas Cowboys became a global super brand. Issue 17 is now available to pre-order. The discount code to redeem the issue to get 20% off of the cover price is FTAG20. So make sure you go to www.pitch-mag.co.uk and use the code FTAG20 to get 20% off of your issue today. A fantastic publication, some great people over there. They've been sharing our content as well, which is really wonderful. So make sure you head over to their website today to get that discount. To Washington, we look. It is the Washington Commanders, and after a incredible 2024-25 season where they got to the NFC Championship with Jaden Daniels at the helm in his rookie year, and they were lights out fun to watch. It was a complete wet fish year for them in the 25-26 season, going 5-12, third in the NFC East, missed the postseason, did beat the Miami Dolphins every day in preseason 20-7. Lots of injuries, injury-ridden Jaden Daniels throughout the whole of the Commanders season last year. It did see the departure of Cliff Kingsbury, their offensive coordinator. However, Dan Quinn, their head coach, has been retained and still there. Was definitely a hot seat guy we're all talking about in the offseason, but he has stayed there. A few interesting moves this offseason, but notably what this team, Andrew, is really going to be wanting to happen this season is just for Jaden Daniels to stay upright. But in terms of firstly, Dan Quinn staying, a new offensive coordinator in town in David Blau, former player David Blau, isn't he? I'm sure.
I remember him being at the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I do as well. That was quite recent, I feel like. When did he retire?
Quarterback, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's have a little look at that. What do you reckon?
Well, it can't have been that long ago. I reckon maybe 5-6 years ago he was a quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, he was at the Lions in 2023. His
There
career
go.
was actually 2019 to 2023. Do you want to hesitate? Do you want to? He played for 4 teams. What do you reckon? You said one of them, Lions, and then you've said another as well. I'm sure you said the Vikings. I'm sure Adam said he was at the Vikings.
Well, where does everyone else play? Someone always has a stint on the Jets or the Browns.
Very good, very good. The Browns is one of them, and then the other one is NFC West team.
49ers?
No.
Well, that's down the brain.
Cardinals then?
The Cardinals, yes. He was on the Cardinals. But he has made his way to being the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. What's your outlook on this coaching setup?
I think that's a good acquisition for them. He's always been spoke about very, very highly. Even when he was a backup quarterback, they talked about him being really, really good. Dan Quinn, came in and did some really good things with them. I was really, really worried about this team last year. Had my massive concerns about the age of the team. What happens when a lot of people on 1-year contracts? What happens when they go? Who do they replace them with? So I think that's got to play into Dan Quinn's legacy as well of what was the plan? What is the plan? And I haven't seen too much of a plan again this year. They brought in again a lot of older players and kind of trying to patch things up again. So I'm a bit confused with the Commanders. I think if I'm honest, it's very much if Jaden Daniels stays healthy again. That's kind of it. I think if he does, they might be in some games. If he doesn't, they're bottom of the pack again. But I don't think they're going to overly challenge in this division, to be fair. We're talking about the other two already and finally the Eagles. I think they're quite far behind where those organizations are at and moving towards. And I think 2 years ago, we were talking about the Commanders pushing forward and building forward. And they were the ones that the Giants and the Cowboys had to catch. And I think they've fallen behind already. So is that down to the coaching staff? Possibly. Is it down to the general manager? Maybe. I'm still very unsure of the direction and the culture of this organization, which is the coaching staff.
I mean, Adam, what is that secret sauce? Because you look around San Francisco 49ers, huge amount of injuries to very key players, can still sneak into the playoffs. The Detroit Lions, huge amount of injuries last season, snuck into there as well. I mean, what is that secret sauce? Because, you lose Jalen Daniels, an incredible loss for them, an amazing, phenomenal quarterback in a very young career and one that we all want to see playing because he's just so much fun to watch when he is there. They've got some good players. They had some decent players on defense last year and on offense. Like Andrew said, is there a bit of a coaching problem there? Were you surprised that they've stuck with Dan Quinn?
No, I wouldn't say I'm surprised that they've stuck with him. I felt like he probably deserved another go at it. I think I don't put a lot of the blame on him. I think in a similar way to the 49ers, I think this is a bit of a GM problem and a bit of just a general drafting problem and who you're bringing in. I kind of agree with Andrew. It feels a bit scattergun to me with the players that they've brought in. It's a bit all over. It's funny because I actually quite like all the players that they've brought in. They've all been pretty good on previous teams, and it kind of makes you feel like they should do well here. But that was kind of how it was last year. as well, where it kind of felt like, yeah, we like all these players. They bought, yeah, okay, a lot of them are older, but we do like them all. They've all been good elsewhere. Didn't really work out for them. I think a lot of it is on the GM. I feel like something that works for a lot of teams, when they do draft, they tend to draft quite a few in a small space of time, as in like a few years, and I think it's quite an easier thing to have that kind of team, all come through together. I think that makes a big difference, and you're not really seeing that with the Commanders because they're not really having a large amount of top quality draft picks. I think is what a lot of the issues are. It's who was it? Was it that they're going out and they're getting like Marshawn Lattimore when they did, and it's kind of like they're throwing draft picks away for a veteran in the hope to get them over the hump, and it's not really working. So I think that's the problem. I think a lot of it is the GM. I don't really blame Dan Quinn much. I think he deserves another go at it, but I do agree that I think they're going to struggle this year.
Say blame the GM though. You look at their picks they did have in the top bracket, being the first round, the third round. Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State at 7, and Antonio Williams, wide receiver out of Clemson. Two decent picks. Some would say Sonny Styles. I mean, we spoke about Caleb Downs being the best overall player in the draft. So some people led down the route of Sonny Styles was that guy. But on the flip side of it, 1 pick in the 5th, 2 picks in the 6th, a pick in the 7th. It said it. When they're not drafting all together loads of players and progressing at the same time, it becomes a bit spotty, doesn't it? But Stars is going to have some, veteran, experienced guys to learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I like a lot of them, but yeah, Sonny Styles, great pick. I don't think anyone could have screwed that up, though. That's what I mean. It's like where that was, it kind of was the obvious one. And Antonio Williams, I think he's got a chance of being a decent wide receiver in the NFL. But again, it's like, but you've got 1 first and 1 third, and then you've got nothing until the 5th, and it's just a little bit like the team. It needs to get younger. You can't just keep on bringing in free agents all the time and hoping that it clicks, which is kind of what they're doing. I like a lot of these free agents. I think Menahew at the Chiefs was really good. Leo Chanel at the Chiefs was really good. Nick Cross at Indianapolis, I think, is a decent player. That defense has got some good players. They spent a fortune on away from the Chargers. They've gone out and got themselves Chiga Okonkwo, who we all know that Adam likes. He's great at tight ends. Stephon Diggs still showed that he had a little bit there as a wide receiver too, next to McLaurin. I think he'll do okay. I don't know. There's just something about this squad where it just kind of feels like they've just gone wallop and just chucked the whole bloody lot at them, and it's just I don't quite know how it's going to work. And then the real question, I know a lot of people, as Andrew said, it is about keeping Jalen Daniels upright. How the hell are they going to cope without Laramie Tunsil for as long as they're going to lose him for now?
How long is his injury? Come to think of it,
I think it's half the season, isn't it? They're talking.
Let's have a look. Laramie Tunsil have tricep surgery. This was 7 days ago. He had tricep surgery. Missed significant time. Will return this season. Didn't disclose how long he'll be out for. But
I think it's going to be a lot.
I wonder what the reports are of people who've had the exact same sort of injury. But yeah, Andrew, Jalen Daniels. When you're looking at that O-line, their job is going to be to protect him and to keep him healthy. But his game is danger. It's a dangerous game, isn't it? He does run, he does take hits, and you always roll the dice when you do that. It's absolutely electric for fans to watch it and for a neutral to watch it. But there were some hits we saw him took in his first season. We were like, dude, you were not going to last very long in the NFL if you take hits like that consistently in your career.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him having to strap his chest up quite a lot. He's going to sustain broken ribs and things like that. We said when he was drafted, the slight on him and whether the measurement of whether he was going to make it or not was his frame, and he's come off the field quite a few times over the last 2 seasons. So I think that's got to be a concern. I don't think there's overly I said this last year as well. What's the backup option? Because if you're building around Jalen Daniels, for me, Marcus Mariota is so far different in terms of style of play that you've got to change your whole playbook to suit him. So I've always said, why they're not bringing in someone behind Jayden Daniels? Why they're not drafting someone who's similar, or getting a free agent of someone who's similar that can play that sort of. So you not have to change your whole organization, because they're not great at wide receiver. Bringing in Stephon Diggs was massive for them, because I felt like they had McLaurin and that was it at wide receiver. And at running back, there's still lots of question marks there. Jacoski Merritt, they brought in Rashad White, Katron Allen I liked out of Penn State, but he is a rookie. There's not loads there at running back and wide receiver. And I just feel like there's a lot on Daniel's shoulders here to really try and get something out of this offense, which I don't think's top tier. And there's no backup option, really, for me, if he goes down.
They were 4th in the NFL for yards and 8th in touchdowns rushing last year.
Yeah, they didn't have Rashad White last year, did they? Who was their running backs last year?
Krosky Merritt.
Yeah, he played White. He
Brian
came
Robinson?
in.
Oh, no, he was at San Francisco already, I think.
Was he Brian Robinson at the beginning, wasn't it? Didn't he go over like halfway? Yeah.
Yeah, but he didn't really play at all, did he?
No.
But I don't know who their combo was in the end, actually.
But Bill came in later in the year, and we think he's going to be the running back one. But, they didn't have White last year, and they didn't have Katron Allen last year. So that's other than Bill, who was a rookie last year, that's a whole new backfield at running back.
Their rushing last year was Chris Rodriguez.
There you go. Who people think might be 1B to Tootin at the Jags.
I mean, they had last year, they had Krosky Merritt on 805, Rodriguez on 500, Mariota on 297, and Jayden Daniels on 278.
Yeah, so it's not great.
Jeremy Nichols on 221 as well. But yeah, I agree. I think for me, like it's about keeping Jayden Daniels up, Ryan. I really hope he does, because I just think he's such a fantastic player. Before we go on to our last team, the Philadelphia Eagles, I forgot to say that Najee Harris is in the building today in New York. Did you see that reported earlier?
Is he?
Yeah, he's been tried out. I did see it earlier today, but I forgot to tell you. Let me just have a look at what the details were, because it definitely popped up.
What, for the Jets?
No, for the Giants.
The Giants host vet Najee Harris
2 hours ago. Free agent RB. That was per Adam Schefter 2 hours ago. Najee Harris is today.
I'm not against that. If he's healthy, I'm not against it.
Just needs to stay healthy. That's the thing. Philadelphia, the only team of the NFC East that went into the playoffs and got eliminated very quickly, 23-19 by the San Francisco 49ers after they went 11-6. Not quite the dominant season that we've seen from Philadelphia Eagles in recent years. Yeah, it was a trying season for them last year. Defense still good as ever, but not quite at the heights as it was, but still very good. Kevin Patullo, sorry, the offensive coordinator, pitchforks are out for him a little bit by the Philadelphia fans. But unfortunately, when you don't do very well in Philadelphia, they get pitchforks out quite quickly. A very passionate fan base, but I do love to see it. Movement this offseason in terms of bringing some guys in. Some guys have moved away, notably A.J. Brown being traded to the New England Patriots, which was just gossiped about from February, pretty much. Well, January, really. So Andrew, I'll start with you, sorry, to begin with. Got some of the free agents tied up as well. Jalen Carter getting an extension, Jordan Davis as well. What have you made of their offseason? Brought in Dontavian Wicks, Jonathan Grenard as well. traded away AJ Brown. Not loads of movement in a team that is quite structured, but isn't afraid to have a play around in the offseason in terms of moving pieces.
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense is always going to be strong. I think we can just tick that box and move on from that. They brought in Reek Woolen, Jonathan Grenard as well, but I think we're quite happy that defense is still going to be strong. So if we talk about the offense and what that might be now, because I think that is the key for them, because last year their offense was sort of good for one quarter and then bad for 3 quarters. And it wasn't really like it was the first quarter that was always good and then it tailed off. Sometimes it would be, they'd get into it and then it'd disappear again. So it was very, very confusing. And that, I think, the O-line really, really struggled, which meant Saquon really struggled, which meant they had to rely on Jalen Hurts a lot, which isn't their gameplay. So I think we're going to see a very, very different Philadelphia Eagles offense this year. I think that's the key to them. I think Mannion coming in might be the direction they need to go. It seems like every other year they have a good coordinator. And I think the key to looking at why it's going to be so different is the AJ Brown trade. So they trade away AJ Brown and they replace him with a lot of guys that aren't similar styled wide receiver to AJ Brown, which to me, when you look at Dontavian Wicks, they've got Smith, Lemon, they've got Hollywood Brown. They're the type of guys that I think you move around and you use them across the field in different ways, and they're sort of transitional wide receivers. And I think that's what we're going to see from them more, rather than this big X receiver down the field on the sideline like AJ Brown does. So I think we're going to see a very different deployment of what Jalen Hurts is going to be distributing the ball, and I think that's going to be getting the ball into the wide receiver's hands early. And we're going to see, maybe we see him actually for once decide that he is going to listen to the coaching staff and play the plays that are being called for him. But it's down to the O-line for me being better this year to release Saquon and seeing what this new wide receiving core of different targets and movement looks like for them. But I think it's a good move for them to do something different, because it hasn't worked and it was very bad last year. And like I said, they disappeared for lots of quarters, and they were very stale and predictable. I think Gareth was one that he used quite a lot. So I think they'll be less predictable with this style, if I'm correct in what I'm saying.
Yeah, Adam, the problem was predictability. I mean, Gareth, our compatriot on the podcast here, he said he could call plays before they were even happening, and if he could do it sat in his chair, the defenses must be, you know, when with the tape that they watch in the week, they must have been licking their lips playing the Eagles offense, who were sublime just a handful of years ago, and then last year predictable, turgid, not that fun, looked soft at times. They've got rid of a big piece in a lot of people's minds, AJ Brown, but they have retooled. They brought in Wicks, Mekhi Lemon in the draft, Eli Stowers, the tight end, to back up or to even maybe potentially start over Dallas Goedert. So it's been a retool. It's been a reshuffle. Sean Mannion, new offensive coordinator. What are you expecting from this offense under him?
Yeah, I would expect something quite similar to how the Packers were playing. So there is a lot of wide receivers, slants, and sort of like a lot of slot play. I think that's what you're going to see. And I think Devonta Smith is probably the guy who's going to take over the AJ Brown role to a certain extent, but not really. So it's almost like you do get that guy. If they can get him clear, then obviously he will be able to make the big play, which is kind of similar to what the Packers did with Christian Watson. So I think that you're going to have that kind of offense go. I think there will be a lot of reliance on Saquon, which, given his age, I think is a little bit of a scary thing to go for. But I mean, they've got Tank Bigsby in there, who's done well before at Jacksonville. They've got Will Shipley as well, and they've signed Dameon Pierce. So they do have some depth there, which I do think I think this year might be the first year that you actually see maybe Saquon doing a little bit less than what he's done in the past, because I think the run game will be important, but I do feel like that you might start seeing signs of him slowing down a little bit now. I think Dallas Goedert is going to be a huge piece for them. I think that Jalen Hurts clearly really likes using him. And although they did bring in Eli Stowers, from what I've read, he hasn't had an amazing preseason, and I think there's a strong chance that Goddard will keep that role and continue. So all in all, I think it'll be very different. I think the fact that it has to be different because AJ Brown isn't there. There isn't really a choice. But yeah, I think that they'll probably work it out eventually. The whole thing with Mannion, I think he will probably play a similar way to what the Packers have been playing because that's where he's come from. But obviously he didn't call any of the plays. You know, it was all LaFleur that was calling the plays. So it's a little bit of a difficult one to know exactly what he's going to do. But logic would kind of suggest that he goes down a similar route.
Do you think that with this changes, the Eagles stay atop of the NFC East? I mean, Andrew, you've been bringing your standings with you. I don't know if you have them tonight, but me and Adam certainly don't. So we'll probably have an idea in our heads of what the table looks like. Do you have any to kick us off with?
Yeah, I mean, I still got the Eagles top in the group. I think it's still their division to lose. I think they're still, in terms of quality and what they've done over the last few years, they should still be top of it. But I've got them, the gap being a lot tighter than it has been in previous years. You know, I think that the top end for me for the Eagles is 12 wins maybe. And then I've got the Giants and the Cowboys. I'm unsure which one of them is going to be the one that kicks on. One of them I think is going to get to 10 wins and the other one's going to be sort of like 8-9 wins. And then obviously I've got the Commanders struggling at the back with maybe 4 to 6 wins at best. But it all depends how the Eagles get on against the in-division games. I think that's the key to this. I think when they come up against the Giants and the Cowboys, how they split those games between them will decide who tops this group. I think it's the closest it's been for a while, with 3 of them actually being able to potentially contend for this. I do think the Eagles are slightly ahead of the Cowboys and the Giants and where they are as a franchise currently. So it's theirs to lose with the chasing guys of the Cowboys and the Giants.
Well, no same team wins it consecutive years, right?
But I think the Eagles have though. Recently,
the Eagles, yeah, it went a long time where no team had won it for 2 years on the trot, though, wasn't it?
Well, for that case, I'm going to have the Cowboys. I'm going to have the Cowboys at the top. And actually, okay, I'll keep the Eagles at second, Giants third, Commanders fourth. That's where I would go with that. I think it'll be the Commanders fall away. Giants are in like a good 8-win spot, 7 to 8 wins, and then I think it might be them two competing for the top again. That's how though I think the Giants improved, much better coach and some good players. I think these things take time. These things take time, and it would just be you're still a couple of years away. That's my 8 wins is nothing stiff at.
The Giants have got the chance to be the Patriots this year, haven't they? That's the kind of like the Drake May, Jackson Dart. You know, that's the kind of the wide receiving core wasn't great for the Patriots last year. Fair enough, the schedule. I'm not saying they get to the Super Bowl.
You've got to play some good teams this year. That's not the Patriots.
True. I thought I thought the Saints were going to be the Patriots of this year myself, but that's just
they ain't got to play anyone. So.
What do you reckon, Adam? Same brackets.
I agree with pretty much everything that's been said. It's going to be very, very tight, I think, between the Eagles and the Cowboys. I'm going to go for the Cowboys this year. There's quite a bit of change at the Eagles, and I think that might slow them up a little bit. And also, they are getting older. Like, there's a lot of players on that team that are getting older. Not the defense. The defense is pretty young still, but the offense, Barkley, Goddard, you got Lane Johnson. There's a Jordan Mailata. There's another one on the O line. They are getting older now, and it just kind of feels a little bit like I'm not sure if they're necessarily going to be as good as what they were. So yeah, Cowboys to win it, Eagles second. I think the Giants will improve and be pretty good actually this year. I don't think they're a playoff team myself, but I think they're not far off. So third, and then I think the Commanders will struggle and come last.
Do we think only one team will make it to playoffs out of this division?
I think there's a chance that two get through. I think.
He's wrong. He's talking waffle.
Well, we said that three might come from out of Packers, Bears, Lions, and we reckon that there's a possibility that I'm guessing
the West.
I said, well, we've already spoke about that, haven't I? So
but the North and the West. That's what I mean.
And I'm guessing we think Seahawks, Rams, possibly 49ers. So I don't know. It's going to be tough. You need more than 10 wins to get it. So it's going to be tough. But I think there is a possibility if one of those two, the Giants or the Cowboys, do push more forward than I anticipate, one of them might get in.
It might be that sort of last day of the season, 10 wins, winning you're in. With I don't know, let's say in my brain, the Saints or Tampa, San Francisco, that it might be like there might be a few teams within the bubble, and it will go down to the last 2-3 weeks sort of thing, and it'll be a bit of a whoever blinks first ain't going sort of situation, maybe. Potentially.
Maybe.
Andrew, Adam, thank you very much for joining me tonight. And thank you very much for you all that are watching and listening to this podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you give us a like and a subscribe as well to go and see the preseason videos that we've done and the ones that are to come. We have a few more coming your way, so make sure you check them out. If you're listening, make sure you give us a subscribe as well on your podcast platform, and check us out on all social media platforms as well, where you can give us a follow and get involved with all of our content that we are posting. Again, go to Pitch Magazine for 20% off using the code FTAG20 to get a fantastic publication coming through your post very soon. Until then, thank you for watching or listening. We'll see you again very soon.